Welcome to Section 13 of the BJCP Trading Program from the Brewers Anonymous Homebrew Club. This is Lesson 1 and the only lesson in this section. And this is going to cover those last little things that you need to know and keep in mind for your entrance exam. So, to start this off, the first thing you should consider doing is looking over the course material again. Run through the names of the sections and lessons. If something doesn't sound familiar or you don't recognize it, take a little bit of time to make sure you've covered it and view it again. We've broken up all the material to make reviewing these quick and easy. So maybe you didn't see it or maybe you forgot the name. Just take the few minutes it will take to review any of these lessons to double check to make sure you've reviewed all the material. The next set of suggestions to prepare for the entrance exam: review the reading material. We brought up a list of reading material that you should consider at the beginning of this course. Now, it's been quite a few weeks ago, so you might have forgotten it, so we're going to review it again. We're not going to list all of the reading material we suggested because the entire list is for the entire program, all the way to your judging exam. We're only going to review the material that pertains to information that might be on your entrance exam. And at this point in the program, you may not need to read the entire section, or the entire book, I should say. You may just need to jump to sections for further clarification on things that were covered in this lesson, starting with How to Brew by John Palmer. If you are new to the entire brewing process, make sure to get a copy of this book. It may even be worth reviewing some sections to make sure you are refamiliarized with the traditional brewing methods that the BJCP entrance exam favors. The Brewing Elements series. The malt, hops, yeast, and water books make up the Brewing Element series. I will say that these books are extensive. They do go above and beyond much of the exam material, but they do provide a well-rounded knowledge base for each of their individual subjects. I'd say at the least, if you don't feel like you have a strong knowledge of a specific part of any of these subjects, look up that information in the appropriate book and review to get more detailed information on. For example, if you're trying to understand lupulin glands better in a hop cone, you can read more in the hop book. If you want to know more about yeast propagation, you can read more about that in the yeast book, and so forth and so on. For much more on beer characteristics than we just covered in Section 12, the Principles of Brewing Science is the prime reference book to learn more. Again, this book will also tell you much more than will be asked on the exam, but if that helps you understand the subject better, then this is the resource for that. And if you are completely new to beer judging, the unofficial guide for judging beer is a good introduction to the BJCP judging process. It has some information relating to our online entrance exam, so it's a good resource to see where all of this comes together in the complete process, but it is more focused on the actual judging process, but still worth reviewing at this point if, and it's a big if here, you are completely new to judging. The next thing I want to cover in this lesson is preparing for your exam day. The most important thing to prepare is schedule an uninterrupted hour for the exam. Scheduling 90 minutes is even better. Why do I say this is the most important thing to prepare for? Because once you hit that start button, the clock is running. The exam does not care if you get a phone call. It doesn't care if you have to go to the bathroom. It doesn't care if your dog needs to go out or if there's a solicitor ringing your doorbell. It will keep running and there's nothing you can do to stop it except end the exam. So make sure you've done all you possibly can to make sure that you will not be interrupted for the 60 minutes when you hit that start button. Also, have all the open book material that you plan to use open and ready. If you're printing them out, lay them out to where you want before you start the exam. If you're using PDF files, get them open and laid out in your window or on your monitor the way you want to reference them before you hit start. Don't waste time setting things up during this exam that you can do ahead of time. The next preparation work you can do: take the practice exams. The BJCP offers its own practice exam for free at bjcp.coursewebs.com. It's 20 questions. Personally, I consider that bull, you know what. I think it is ridiculous to create a notoriously difficult exam and then only offer less than 12% of an example as a practice version of what that very difficult exam is, but it is what it is. It's available. Take it, see how you do. I think it's fairly safe bet that if you don't pass this very short version of the exam, that you're probably not ready to take the full test, but that's just an opinion. And on the flip side of that, since it is such a small sampling of questions, passing it certainly doesn't guarantee you're going to pass the real exam, but still take it anyway. See where your strengths and weaknesses are if you have any going into or before you go into the actual exam. Then head on over to section 14 and take our practice exam. I think ours is much more representative of the real thing. Ours is 90 questions in 30 minutes time limit, same amount of time that you get for the full hour at 180 questions. So it's basically half the real thing. It's still being written as of this recording, so look for it soon. If you're on our mailing list for updates, we will certainly announce when it's posted. Our version may be a little easier than real thing. We certainly aren't trying to make it easier, but we do have to write our own questions. We can't use any real exam questions. They're copyrighted, and we collectively don't have a very large recollection of the exact questions anyway. So we're trying to simulate the exam the best we can with original questions. So having said that, if you don't pass this exam, you may not be ready for the real thing. And conversely, if you pass this exam, this is in no way any form of a guarantee that you're going to pass the online entrance exam. But as far as the exam structure, the time limit, and the questions we're trying to make the best we can, I think it's a much better representation than what else is out there right now. I'm just going to leave it at that. And lastly, if you take nothing else away from this lesson, please consider this. Do not underestimate this exam. This is not a walk in the park exam. It is difficult. It is very difficult. And one thing I want to point out real clear, I have talked to a lot of prospective test takers, and the phrase I'm hearing a lot is, I'll be fine, I'm a good test taker. And you probably are, but ask yourself this, what's the last exam you've actually taken, like real exam? And was that exam that you've taken comprised of 180 questions in a time limit that averages those questions to just 20 seconds per question? I'm going to tell you right now, I take professional certification exams in the technology field, and the last one I took was 70 questions in 135 minutes. That is almost 2 full minutes per question. And even then, I was up against the clock. Just really don't underestimate this exam. I cannot say that enough. Now, can the exam be passed without going through all this preparation material? Of course. Any exam can be. Is it likely? Absolutely not. So do yourself a favor, because you are the only one that will ultimately be affected by this. Look over the lesson topics one more time before taking the exam. If any of them look completely unfamiliar to you, or you don't have much or any recollection of the material that it covered, take the time to revisit those lessons. Make sure you've gotten all the information before taking this exam. I'm going to say it one more time. Don't underestimate this exam. And lastly, consider getting the 3 attempts for the price of 2 option. That is $20. If you don't pass the exam the first time, at the very least, you'll now have a first-hand idea of what this exam actually is, and that can only help you in the next exam. And if you do pass the first time, it's $20. That is still a reasonable price. Again, I just talked about doing those professional certification exams. They start at 3 digits. Some are ridiculous for the credential you get. I'm just going to say it flat out. One that I'm considering taking is over $400, and I do not think what it gives me the credential for is worth that. I don't know. I'm still debating that. So $20 compared to what you could pay for some other things is not really, I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination, unreasonable. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up and say, give yourself the best chance you possibly can going into this exam. Preparation is key to passing. Prepare as best as you can. Have the open book material ready. Schedule that uninterrupted hour before hitting start. And best of luck. I sincerely hope you do well. I hope everybody that attempts this passes and goes on to the next step to get their full BJCP certification. The hobby needs judges. Judging can be so much fun, and taking that next step towards continuing the hobby as we go further into the future only helps everybody that's involved. So thank you for watching. Good luck. I hope you completely ace this exam.